This is the Rubiks Crystal, and my name's Dana, and welcome to an episode of Dana Does, where I take a look at some super cool products from Rubiks. In terms of the packaging, it is quite simple, but it really allows the crystal aspect and the very elegant aspect, I would say, of the cube to stand out. And you can see here that similar to the original Rubik's Cube, this puzzle has 43 quintillion possible combinations. After some fidgeting with the box, I'm able to get the cube out, and we're able to take a closer look at the really awesome Rubiks Crystal. As you may have guessed, the name Rubiks Crystal comes from the fact that the cube itself looks like a crystal, and this allows you to see inside of the classic and very popular Rubik's Cube, and I for one think the cube looks absolutely amazing, and the fun color palette offers a unique transparent take, and really it makes the perfect gift for someone who's solved the cube hundreds of thousands of times, or someone who's never solved it before. The cube itself does solve like a original Rubik's Cube, but it's a fresh take on the iconic puzzle. This is me solving the Rubiks Crystal, and as mentioned before, it solves just like a standard Rubik's Cube, but it probably looks 10 times cooler while you do it. And that was the Rubiks Crystal, a super awesome new transparent take on the classic Rubik's Cube. Tons of fun, and honestly a perfect gift for anyone you might know, and you can check it out at Rubiks.com. And thanks for tuning in to an episode of Dana Does. This is the Rubiks Slide. And my name's Dana, and welcome to an episode of Dana Does, where I take a look at some really awesome products from Rubiks, and as aforementioned, in this video I'll be checking out the Rubiks Slide. This puzzle is quite tricky, as at a first glance it looks just like a classic Rubik's Cube with one piece missing, but it is completely different. I was completely baffled the first time that I tried to move it, and it moves in an entirely different way from the classic Rubik's Cube, as you can see, sliding the pieces around instead of turning the faces. So rather than twisting and turning, you have to slide the cubies around to scramble and to solve the puzzle. And similar to the original Rubik's Cube, in order to solve it, all of the faces must have a uniform color, and you'll see as I start moving and sliding the cubies around here, the sides do not have the same color, so clearly it is scrambled. It also stands on one corner. I thought that was pretty cool. After a bit of hesitation, I decide that I should scramble this and see if I can solve this puzzle. Honestly, I wasn't too confident in my abilities here, but I thought it was worth a challenge, and in order to sort of scramble and solve the puzzle, you slide, and I kind of classify this as bumping the cubies around into place, and the goal is to match the faces so that they're all completed to one color. And this puzzle is quite interesting because the mechanics of how it moves is completely different than a standard Rubik's Cube, which in my mind makes it perfect for someone who has solved Rubik's Cube before but wants to look for a new challenge, or for someone who's never touched a Rubik's Cube in their life. Now for the fun and quite challenging part, actually trying to solve the puzzle. Although for a bit at the beginning, it looks like I don't really know what I'm doing, and that's because I didn't really know what I was doing. It took me a while to sort of get the hang of things, but I eventually did figure it out. Obviously this clip is quite sped up, but the entire first solve took me about 10 minutes. And don't worry, if you're feeling stuck, an instruction guide is being worked on. If not, it might actually already be out by the time you're watching this video, in which case you can check it out on Rubiks.com. Now, I found this puzzle quite interesting because clearly it doesn't turn like a standard Rubik's Cube, but at least for me, the way that I solve a Rubik's Cube is layer by layer, and I applied the same principles here, and after quite a bit of trial and error, it seemed to have worked out. I think I did get a little bit lucky there at the end, but it was a ton of fun to play with and figure out how to solve this puzzle. And just with my luck, after I filmed the first attempt, I stopped filming because I wanted to take a quick break, and literally in that break I accidentally figured out how to solve it. So this is what the solved cube looks like, and again, this is the Rubiks Slide, an awesome take on the original Rubik's Cube, and thanks for tuning in to an episode of Dana Does. Hello, my name is Dana Yi, and welcome to my series Dana Does, where I take a look at some really awesome products from Rubiks. Today we'll be taking a look at the Rubiks Race Ace Edition, and this is a new version of the already super fun Rubiks Race game, and this version has 6 added tiles that add an extra layer of complexity, and just like the Rubiks Race, this is a 2-player game, so grab your best friend and have a ton of fun. And to play the game, you shake the scrambler that has a lot of little multicolored cubies inside of it, and once you shake them, they land in a pattern, and the goal in which you're racing against your opponent is to shift and slide the tiles on your side to be the first person to match the pattern that was in the scrambler. But note that this game has 6 extra tiles, so your opponent can use what are called blockers or wild tiles to stop you in your tracks. And this game is super cool because it's a board game of skill, speed, dexterity, and problem solving, and playing games against other people is always super fun. At least I'm personally always pretty competitive, so this game is really fun to play. And to set up the scrambler, you open the little plastic part that's on top, and with the 9 little cubies that come inside the box, you put them in this little tray, and as you can see, they're rattling a little bit. You put the plastic back on and you can shake it up and the colors will become random, and that's the pattern that you have to match in your game. All the tiles come in a plastic bag, so once you empty them, you have a small colorful mess on your desk, and you're about to see some pretty interesting tiles in this batch. This new tile is what's called the wild tile, and each player has one per game, and it has the ability to replace another tile as long as the color that it's becoming is not the original color of the tile it is replacing. This new black tile is called a blocker tile, and there are 4 in total, so each player has 2, and the opposite player can play it on your side to essentially block you and stop you in your tracks. And this is an overview of all 6 of the new tiles that are in this version of the Rubiks Race Ace Edition. These are the official instructions. If you don't know how to play, feel free to take a pause and read through them. However, if you already know how to play, why aren't you playing right now? This is what it looks like when you put all the tiles in place, and I thought putting them in rainbow order looked really cool. These are the rules regarding the new tiles. So for the blocker tiles, once you put them on your opponent's side, these tiles cannot be moved, and to play them, you replace 2 tiles from your opponent's border row or the outer ring in the 5x5 grid that's on your side with 2 blocker tiles. And for the wild tiles, sort of like a wild card, can be any color, and you replace 1 tile from your game tray with the wild tile. So you could think of this as being super useful if you have one color that's really close but you can't quite get it. And this is just a graphic showing more in detail what the border row actually is. Now, I didn't have anyone to play with, so this game is rather one-sided. Basically, I'm guaranteed to win, and you'll also notice that sometimes I shift the black tiles or the blocker tiles around, and that's because I didn't read the instructions that closely, so do as I say and not as I do in this case. The blocker tiles are not supposed to be moved. You'll also note that the pattern on the scrambler actually shifts in the middle of this, and this is because it fell over from my Rubik's connected cube and the pattern switched, so I decided to go along with it. And boom, a few minutes later, I have won against my imaginary opponent. You'll notice that the 3x3 grid on my side that I'm pointing to here matches the 3x3 grid that's inside the scrambler. So woohoo, I won. So that was the Rubiks Race Ace Edition, a really cool twist on an already super awesome puzzle, the Rubiks Race, that you can play with friends, and I hope you enjoyed this installment of Dana Does. Hello, my name's Dana, and welcome to an episode of Dana Does, where I take a look at some really cool Rubiks products. And in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the Rubiks Race Metallic Edition. The packaging is quite similar to that of the standard Rubiks Race and the Rubiks Race Ace Edition. So you'll see the instructions, the tiles off to the side, and the tray that serves as the game board for the 2-player game. This is a quick view of the instructions. This is the scrambler, and the actual housing for it is the same among the Rubiks Race, the Rubiks Race Ace Edition, and this edition, the Rubiks Race Metallic. But as the metallic namesake goes, the actual little cubies are metallic, which is super cool. They look super cool up close. And they come together with a satisfying snap. Here is a quick overview of the assembly with the 2 sort of player boards and the I'm not sure if it has a name, the flippy thing in the middle that the person that matches the pattern in the center flips down to indicate that A, they've matched the pattern, and B, they've beat their opponent. And these are the lovely metallic tiles. You'll see some more up-close shots, but these look so cool. For an up-close comparison between the non-metallic, which I'm showing here on the left, versus the metallic version on the right, obviously it's more reflective, it's more metallic, and honestly they look so cool. And on the top we have the standard ones, and on the bottom we have the metallic, the reflective, the super cool and updated versions. Honestly, both versions are super cool. They have their own flair to them, and I just think they look awesome. You can set up the board by putting equal number of the same color on both sides, and here's what it looks like when I try to be cool and do it with two hands at the same time. And an overview of the board. I just can't get over how cool the shiny metallic looks. Now, I don't have an opponent, but luckily for me, that means I just get to win this game, and in order to play, you shake up the scrambler to get a random assortment of colors, and your goal is by sliding the tiles around as fast as you can to match this pattern, and hopefully do it before your opponent does. Again, this is the Rubiks Race Metallic Edition. It's a new version of the classic Rubiks Race game, and the tiles, they're reflective, they're super cool, they're very mesmerizing, and it makes the perfect puzzle gift for any Rubiks enthusiast. Additionally, it's a fresh take on your favorite strategy racing game, that is Rubiks Race, and if you're looking on another take, there also is a Rubiks Race Ace edition that adds some new twists and turns. I would classify this, honestly, as a high-intensity two-player board game, and it's designed to get your brain working, your fingers moving, and working at an extremely fast pace. So I would say this board game is also for fans of the original Rubik's Cube. It's quite a bit different in terms of the solve style, but it's still got the same puzzle intrigue. And since it is so different, it also works for people who have never solved the cube before. And lastly, it's a two-player game, so you can face off against your best friend, your worst enemy, and hopefully both have a lot of fun, and hopefully you can win. So here you can see I've matched the pattern in the scrambler. The lighting is a bit weird, so that red kind of looks orange. So that was the Rubiks Race Metallic Edition. I think the little cubies and the tiles look really cool in this game, and it was a ton of fun to play by myself. Probably would be a little bit more fun with another opponent, but luckily that just gave me the chance to win here. Again, it's a super cool puzzle. It is the Rubiks Race Metallic Edition. You can check it out on Rubiks.com, and thanks for tuning in to Dana Does. This is the Rubiks Roll, and my name is Dana, and welcome to an episode of Dana Does, where I take a look at some really awesome products from Rubiks. It comes with an instruction manual, and I'll go over each of the games individually, and of course it also comes with the Rubiks Roll itself. Now, this game does look like a standard Rubik's Cube, but it's called a Rubiks Roll, and there are 5-in-1 games that you can play with the Rubiks Roll. To take off the outer casing, you can sort of squeeze lightly and pull up, and this part is pretty interesting. You can pull out the layers one by one, and I don't do so good of a job. Whoops. Anyway, so again, this is the Rubiks Roll. It's a new portable Rubik's game, and with the Rubiks Roll, you receive 27 dice, a shaker, and 2 grids, and this translates to a lot of games. So, for example, there are 5 outlined in the instructions, and I'll go through all of them, but they are as follows: Play the Shake, 21, Battle Dice, Trio, and Tower of Dice, and you can play all of them with this grab-and-go game. And the games involve a variety of skills such as counting, matching, creating patterns, and problem solving. And because you can play all 5 games, and you can probably come up with your own, and this comes in a pretty small package, it's perfect for road trips, it's easy to store, and you can fit 5 games easily in your hand. And the Rubiks Roll is fun for anywhere from 2 to 5 players. Now, the first game is called The Shake, and if you saw earlier, I shaked the scrambler, and to do so, I got a random pattern, and this is a 2-player game. Each player takes 9 dice, you put 9 in the shaker, and you keep rolling, and if you match one of the colors in the shaker, you put it on, and you keep doing this until one of you matches the pattern in the shaker. So you can see me winning against myself here. The second game is called 21, where you try and roll 21 or as close to it as possible, and to do so, each player rolls 9 dice, and on each turn, the number score of that round is the highest number of dice of the same color, and you can keep going as high as you want, and you want to get as close as you can to 21 without going over. So, for example, here on this first roll, I ended up with 3 blues and 3 greens, so my score for this round was 3. And on this roll, I managed to drop one of the cubies off the edge of my desk. And after a few rolls, I got to 23, in which case I lose the game. In the third game, Battle Dice, you want to hunt down your opponent's dice, and each player has 3 dice and 1 grid, and you choose a color and place your dice on your grid, and make sure to keep them a secret. On your turn, you want to call out a grid reference like A2, which is a coordinate, and the other player says hit or miss, and whoever gets the other person's 3 dice first wins. For me, I said the columns go A, B, C, and the rows go 1, 2, 3. So if my opponent said C1, it would be a hit because my QB is there. Unfortunate. If they said B2, however, that would be a miss because they don't have a QB there. A2 would be a hit because I have a QB there. C3 would be a miss because there's nothing there. And lastly, B3 would be a hit, and I would lose the game. The fourth game is called Trio, in which 2 players play against each other. Each player picks a color, and on each turn, they roll 6 dice. If there are any dice of their color, they get to put it on the grid, and the goal is to get 3 in a row before your opponent does. So clearly the player on the left has chosen red, and the player on the right has chosen white in this case. On this particular roll, the right player went and they got a white QB, so they get to put it on the board. Unfortunately, the player on the left does not roll any red, so the player does not get a chance to put down a QB on the board. This goes on for some time, and actually the left player makes a comeback and wins with a really, really clutch roll at the end. Now for the final and perhaps my favorite game is Tower of Dice. So there's a grid in the middle and it's a 2-player game. You guys decide on a color, and on each turn, each player rolls all 9 dice. If there is one that matches the color that was decided on, you have to place it on the QB in the middle, and your goal is to not be the person that puts the QB on the tower that causes it to topple over. So you can see here, for example, the left player rolls, there's a white one, so you have to put it on top, and this goes on for quite a while, and I actually have to change the camera angle up because the tower gets so high, so this is pretty interesting to watch. Look at the wobble! You'll notice each turn actually takes longer and longer time, and this is because the higher and higher it gets, the more worried I am that it's going to fall over. And I actually managed to stack all the QBs on top of each other, so this led for a pretty cool view. And for the final QB, ta-da! And the aftermath. And again, this is the Rubiks roll. There are a ton of really cool games that you can play with this. Be creative, come up with your own, and thanks for tuning in to an episode of Dana Does.